No, you can sit.
Somebody is sitting here.
I
Oh, sorry, it's yours. Sorry.
Sorry. Shama sitting here. He's there. Yes. Sorry, no.
Dear friends, at the outset, I would like to thank Professor Siddharthan and Narayanan for giving me the opportunity to share this session. I have been attending the Knowledge Forum conferences right from the beginning. I was, of course, a founder member of the association. And what I like about Knowledge Forum is very business-like, very professional, with a compact body of members and a very well-organized system. And at this conference, I think I'm meeting so many of my former students and colleagues. You will be surprised. I have been at the Delhi School for 64 years. 64 years, right from 1958. Yeah. So you can imagine how many students I have really trained, and of course, the settling examples are Siddharthan, Narayanan, Nagesh Kumar, Aradhana Jain, and I think yeah. So it is I'm very happy to be able to come to this conference and participate. I did not attend in the last 2 years, 3 years. I think even the Madras conference I could not attend.
Madras.
Yeah. So it is. I'm very proud of my colleagues for running this association so well and bringing out so many valuable publications year after year. Now I think this session is on technology and economy, the broad theme of the conference. And this particular session is on foreign direct investment and the platform economy. We have 3 papers. As mentioned by Dr. Narayanan, each presenter will get about 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes. And I will comment quickly, and then there will be discussion from the floor. So I now request Dr. Vinopal and his colleagues to present the paper on platform economy, small enterprise performance, and employment in India.
Sumesh. Yes.
Yeah, please. Go ahead. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Please. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Sumit. I'm from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and our paper is titled Platform Economy, Small Enterprise Performance and Employment in India. It's a paper co-authored by Professor Pinapol, Dr. Kamal Mulari and Dr. Unmesh Patnaik. So we will begin by introducing a little bit about digital platforms. And digital platforms are basically a computer system that connects users. And when I say users, this can be businesses, customers, government, or general public, and they exchange information using these platforms and end up transacting information or buying or selling. If you follow this logic, platform economy has three parties involved. So we have a customer, we have a supplier, and we have a platform which is connecting these two parties. For example, let's say Amazon. Amazon itself is a platform, and we have customers and buyers coming together in that particular platform, and they are exchanging information, and then they will be doing a transaction over there. And digital update by small enterprises is growing intense and are introducing structural changes to how small businesses operate in our country. And faster innovative technology industry and cutthroat competition have enabled Indian enterprises to digitize their operations, including SRM. Unlike developed economies, unlike developed economies, self-employment is substantially higher than wage employment in India. Self-employment is a bit more than half, while the wage employment is just 1/4. And the drivers of most self-employed entities are single owners called own-account workers. And most small enterprises, especially the self-employed, are in a vulnerable state and are struggling to meet both ends. And the precarity gets amplified in situations like COVID-19. And digital platforms are emerging as a crucial resource for small and micro enterprises in India. And we assume that the enterprise's choice to adopt digital platforms creates favorable outcomes for the enterprise, self-employed services, and wage labor. And if you see the whole literature review section, we have prepared in a way that it connects the platform economy, the employment, and the economic growth. And the foundation of digital economy lies in its capacity to augment economic growth and human capital. And in this sense, the overall economic output is inclusive of the value derived from international dimensions of digital input. And when it comes to the employment implications of technology-based development, digital revolution will favor capital over labor and skilled labor over unskilled labor. And which means we will have to go for workforce upskilling and reskilling. And platform uptake also skill-based technological things that upskilling and reskilling comes into picture. And we have a platform economy also calls for routine-based technological things where a high degree of routineness is brought to work, especially in clerical work, everything a high degree of routineness. Platform will bring high degree of routineness. And coming to the objectives of the study, we intend to study how digital platforms leads to enterprise performance and employment, and how we will be studying it using small enterprises. And why small enterprises is because in India, regular wage is from this one fourth of the employment, whereas more than half of the Indian workforce is self-employed, and more than 90% of these are small and micro enterprises out of the 60 million. And coming to the methodology, we use both secondary data and primary data in our study. When it comes to secondary data, national sample survey, micro data, the 73rd round down small business and micro enterprises are we using. And the data set covers all states and union territories of India. And it captures 0.3 million small enterprise units in India. Whereas the primary data is concerned, we have done a survey in, let's say, across all the regions and 12 tier 1 and tier cities in India. As you can see, the green colored one are the tier 1 cities and the black one are the tier 2 cities. In north, we have New Delhi, Lucknow, Indore, and Patna. In south, we have Bengaluru, Madurai, Visakhapatnam, and Bhutan. Ranchi, Guwahati, and Bhubaneswar. And west, we have Mumbai, Surat, Goa, and Nagpur. What we found, first we will present our finding from the NSSO data, and we primarily analyze the performance of enterprise based on 3 indicators. We have taken value added asset and count of employees. the value added depicts performance, whereas the other two, that is, the count of employees indicate the enterprise resources. And we use internet usage variable as a proxy variable to separate between digital technology users and non-users within the data set. And we also capture if the measured impact of digitalization is substantially higher than that of scenario of non-digitized, whether the digitalized enterprises are deriving more value than the non-digitalized. And coming to the descriptive statistics, we have in this table, you can all the indicators are given. We have the asset, value added and labor, and in every category again separated whether they are using like internet or not. And what we could find from this table is that the non-users form a largest cluster. You see over here within this category, non-users are higher compared to the users. And like the non-users form 0.26 million, whereas the users are only 0.02 million. And our finding is that users financially benefit from different platforms, and how they derive benefits. We will see in the coming slides. It's like first for that we will discuss the incremental change for internet users over the non-users. If you this particular picture, you can see we have plotted three things. We have value added employment and value added per employee. For this value added per employee, we have adjusted the value added with the count of employment. But what we need to understand is that the first bar, comparing to the non-users, the users, the platform users are deriving 146% performance, securing 146% performance, comparing to the the users are deriving 146% performance better than non-users. Likewise, in employment, the platform users are providing more employment, 41% had employment than the non-users. And when it comes to value added, again, the users are having 139% like value added compared to the non-users. In this particular picture, you can see the two pictures. On the left side, we have the internet users. We have plotted the internet users in India. If you see this picture A, you can see that the enterprise using internet vary across states, which could signify resource asymmetry or digital divide. And the count is quite higher in, you could say, south and west, the count is quite high. And whereas in contrary, you could say that eastern and northern India, the count is quite less, except it could call for a UP and Bengal, the count is high. And if you see the picture B on the right side, the incremental value added is plotted over there. If you compare these both pictures, we could see that the internet usage and the value added value added is not really much correlated. And why, in terms of count and value added, states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and UP are emerging as hotspot. Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, UP are coming as hotspots. And why it could be is because of the economies of scale translated to prospective enterprises than the count of internet usage. And count of enterprises using internet for business purposes across different segments. The highest platform users are among wholesale and retail industry, professional, scientific, technical segments, education segment, manufacturing segment. These segments use the platforms highest. Whereas the financial insurance kind of activities, real estate activities, in these segments, insurance, these activities are internet usage is quite less over there. And classification of enterprises through random forest class algorithm. Here, it's like if you see, we have plotted all three assets. All three indicators we have plotted over here: the asset, the labor, and the value added. The basic idea is that if you see the green bubbles, those are the internal users. The red one are the non-users. You need to see how these are clustering together. If you see the first one, the labor and asset has been the highest quadrant. Those internet users are clubbing together in the highest quadrant of both labor and assets. Likewise, in gross value added, clubbed together in the green ones. The users are clubbing together in the highest quadrant, which means they are delivering the highest value. Again, when it comes to labor and value added, you can see that even some of the non-digitized enterprises are clipping on the highest, like high green cotton where they're deriving highest value. Now, basically, Dr. Kamal with us, he's an expert in machine learning. He's the one who derived this thing. The random forest visualize the grouping between users and non-users, correlation cost value. These are the technical things. Out of 0.28 million samples, 18 million units are using the training set, while 0.045 million and 0.057 million observations are in the validation and test set respectively. The fit is reasonably good with 78%. And an increasing, an interesting is, I mean, this thing, the last concentration of gross value added and labor. Here, most of the users are located in the quadrant of high employment and high value added. However, the non-users in high in employment corresponds low moderate value added. The fourth one, this particular area. And we're coming to the primary field findings. The overall story is that the firms who subscribe to digital platforms enjoy higher returns compared to the non-users. And if you see the median difference in revenue across categories for retail and Tier 1, Tier 2 cities, if we plot the median revenue across the regions and across cities, you could see that digitalized enterprises are earning higher compared to the non-digitalized enterprises. For example, in North, if the digitized enterprises are earning 2 million, the non-digitized enterprises are earning 0.75 million. Likewise, across regions and across cities, there is not the digitalized enterprises who is earning better. And we see the median difference for adopters of digital technologies across groups. With this particular group, this first portion is for the full sample. The second portion is for the Tier 1 cities, and the other portion for the Tier 2 cities. The green one represents the value of sales, blue cost, yellow productivity, and green employment. If you see, for the full sample, the users are having 194%. I mean, they are performing 194% better than the non-users. Where they will come to cost, the digitized enterprises have like they are able to reduce cost. Likewise, the productivity is also high for enterprises who subscribe to digital platforms. Like this for employment, also digital enterprises are providing higher employment. The same trend you can see in Tier 1 cities and Tier 2 cities. The trend is being replicated in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. And we go for a biation updating to examine the difference between e-commerce users and non-users. It is also important to update the belief that these groups are not probably different from each other. For that, if you see this particular graph, we have taken the value of sales and employment. Here we have a collection of four pictures A, B, C, and D. And if you see in this A and B category, here the green line represent users, the red one represent non-users. When we compare trade, the users are deriving better sales compared to the non-users. When it comes to this is for users non-users comparison. If you compare Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities, you could see that Tier 2 cities are performing better. With digitalized enterprises in Tier 2 cities are performing better than the non-digitalized enterprises. And if we take employment for that matter, yes and no. Here the green one represent users of platforms and the red one represent non-users. When it comes to employment, the users are providing more employment than the non-users. And when it comes to Tier 1, Tier 2, there is not much difference. Posterior density, like more refined difference, it is saying that there is not much difference in employment between Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. Same thing. D defects, that is D defects, posterior density of employment for Tier 1 cities, green and Tier 2. Here, the users, if we like take the story as a whole picture, for combined, it will be like the users are clearly ahead of non-users in both value creation and employment. Concerning cities, the evidence is tier 2 cities is ahead of tier 1 cities in value creation. However, there is no difference across these two cities in employment. In employment, there is no difference, whereas in value of sales, tier 2 cities are heading up. In value of sales, also users and tier 2 cities are heading up. And some other findings, small towns in West and North India make higher return than the other regions. The presence of digital divide, knowledge, and access to digital resources could be the potential causes of this difference. And enterprises in tier 2 cities make higher revenue than enterprises in tier 1 city. Tier 2 perform better than tier 1. And this difference is expected since the degree of enterprise competition is high in tier 1 cities, which is offering high choices for customers. So the opportunity for digitalized enterprises in tier 2 cities will be high, which justifies their higher sales and employment. And digital platforms will help small enterprises to expand their market coverage, industry coverage, and modification of the workplace. During the field work, we have observed even small firms exporting in small quantities. There was a tuition teacher who she was taking tuition for students in Cairo. So participants who have witnessed the business transition testify that the adoption of digital technologies is better payoffs. The participation of women is higher for technology users. Approximately 30% of the sample studied were women-owned enterprises. There is significant gender difference. Even though there was like 30% was women, the gender difference was identified, which was in favor of women. And the field narrative throws some concerns regarding digital divide, digital literacy, etc. And the growth prospects of digitalized enterprises in grown cities are in their maturity stage. We could say in tier 1 cities, those are already in their maturity stage, which is offering high variety for customers, choices for customers. And in contrast, small enterprises in growing cities, let's say tier 2 cities, have much more to explore in terms of revenue creation and skill development. And these are some of the field narratives we can. I have only had primary education and I am unaware of new technology. My sons are educated and maybe in future they will run the business in new ways and forms. And I quote, through e-commerce, I can find an income sitting home without compromising my family needs. COVID has increased my student base and I even have students from UAE and Cairo. I use communication e-commerce mostly since it is free. I could easily manage it using my mobile. I have a greater fan following in Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat, which has followers from abroad. I also ask my friends and families to share my posts so that I will get increased sales. And if we conclude these, the research established a correlation between adoption of digital technologies by the micro enterprises and its benefit to the owner. I mean, it benefits to the owners, the workers, the stakeholders, regions, and the economy as a whole. And for micro and small enterprises and self-employed person, it is crucial to upgrade the business which they are in, especially to generate a higher value added. Digital platforms are indispensable for aligning these units with network markets. They need to get into the network market, like more connections they need to make, I mean, which is also observed in the field. They need to get into platforms. Adopting digital technologies helps in 2 ways. First, to improve the internal processes, particularly labor productivity, which is observed. It's like these entrepreneurs, they were testifying that since they started using technology, then sales went up, the employees started performing for simple Google Pay, phone pay, they are able to do more transactions, and the youth today are more prone to digital transaction and everything, and without the need of using pen. Morning we were discussing it, without using the pen, we could tap our card, we could pay, and even those entrepreneurs who are in there, users 70, they are using it. And on the producer side, this is the last slide. On the producer side, introducing digital technologies enhances productivity, reduces business cost and information asymmetry, cut barriers to entry, and improve the accessibility of the international markets. Benefit of the customer side is reduction in prices, accessibility to product from different producers, and convenience of direct delivery of product, reducing transaction costs. And moreover, the regional markets were declined rather with developing nations and digital firms in the global south provide an escape avenue from ineffective labor and developed markets. Simple sense, it's like our economy going towards like subscribing more to platforms will lead to growth. I mean, our country is in a progressive state because it's definitely our research getting into 12 cities like Taiwan, Tier 2 cities was a very good experience, and we collect the real time data and we validate it with SSO data, we validate it with primary data. The trend still continues, and in the near future, we hope that once a study of the same could be conducted, and it's like results are like starting. Thanks.
I'll be very brief in my comments. I think it is a very valuable contribution, this particular paper, on a new area of research. Right from the section 2, where the literature is surveyed, I think the paper makes a significant contribution. I already emailed Dr. Vinopal that this needs to be further elaborated for the benefit of the profession. And I think then my points are more of a clarificatory nature. For example, figure 6 needs to be explained. Machine learning is, I think, is still not very well known to economists, and it takes time to grasp the essentials of machine learning. And in particular, the random forest algorithm on page 17, I think, needs to be explained. This is very important for the benefit of the economists. Similarly, Bayesian analysis, although it is very important in statistics, but it is not very commonly used because of the lack of software in econometrics. But now the software is available. I think I'm very happy that this particular paper refers to Bayesian analysis. The essentials of Bayesian analysis has to be gone into. I think very abruptly it is into Bayesian analysis, but I think for the benefit of the readers, it has to be elaborated. Overall, as I mentioned, it is a very ambitious, scholarly, serious, and comprehensive attempt on digital, I think, digital economies. And this is an area with great promise. Therefore, I think the authors of the paper, when they revise it, now it is in the form of a report. I think probably the research paper dimension is not very focused. That has to be done, and I'm sure Vinopal and his colleagues will attend to this. Now I will ask
Professor Krishna,
participants to.
yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not concluding. I think there are. I am now.
I'm requesting that I have a question for them, not for you.
You know, I think now all the questions are for them. Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good.
I hope I'm throwing open the session for discussion.
You have done that, so my request.
Professor Pandit,
Yeah.
BL Pandit, yeah.
Well, I haven't read the paper in as much detail as Professor Krishna has read it as a discussant, as a chairperson. I've done my papers in my session. My just bother, I am a student of macroeconomics, and I always look at the comparative benefits and losses. When you say that you have platform economies, e-commerce, and then you have a table, what is the share of those platforms, starting with Facebook and Swiggy, this. And then I ask myself the question, if we have an Amazon-like thing making great progress, are we asking, we means me, I'm not saying your research paper, but me, I'm worried about what's the impact on employment. I'm not saying that you should consider it, because you have a technical, this thing is pretty high, and you have different questions to ask, and you are focusing on this platform story. But I am a student of macro. I just want to know, when this happens in a country like India, where people are being displaced by Swiggy, displaced by Zomato, displaced now in a big way by Amazon, should somebody consider that? It may not be your part, your job to do it. But as I'm telling you, that isn't it necessary for us that all of us are worried about unemployment, worried about the less skilled people who have been thrown out of jobs, not only because of COVID, but because of this platform economy also. I'm again repeating, it is not a critique of your paper. Your sophistication is pretty high and your focus is different. But is it a relevant question? Can you throw some light on it at some stage? That's where I stop.
Someone after you.
Yeah, hi. As Professor Siddharthan said this morning, I guess we should all try to publish, and I'm sure you're preparing this paper for publication. So my comment should be seen in that light. I really found your presentation very interesting and insightful. So the result that really stands out for me is that tier 2 cities gain more than tier 1 cities. The other things we know from other. So why is this so? And the examples that you've given are all of scaling up, whereas platform economies have to do with networks of users and buyers. I don't see this. You're not measuring it. And so you're using the term platform pretty loosely. You would be this paper would be as interesting if you said that internet usage benefits tier 2 cities more than tier 1. And that allows you to then speculate about the reasons for this much more directly. So I just feel that maybe the framing should be a little bit more what you've done rather than use some terminology, because platform economies are winner takes all kind of economies. So whoever builds the biggest network is going to win. But this is not happening in tier 2 cities. Why? Is it because there are only few players operating like this? Is it a scarcity thing? Is it because there is a lack of connectivity with the rest of the economy, and so internet provides us with a way? So I would like you to spend more time to think about those causes. And then a second minor point is, though I'm an economist, trained as an economist, I don't know machine learning. So I echo Professor Krishna's point that you need to show us those results using other methods too. If you want to be credible, it's great that you're doing this, but the suspicion in my mind is it an artifact of the method? Or is this really a true result that whatever method I use, I can find it? So those are like two different points.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other comment? Yeah.
Overall analysis, when you are doing the tier 1 city, tier 2 city analysis using or using internet. So is it kind of the bilateral or kind of the looking at new variable, the association? Have you done some the control variable that while using providing data on productivity and things, while making a difference between the tier 3 city? So what type of variable you have control? So this is the first kind of why.
Yeah, you please.
Yeah.
You want to respond? Yeah.
Of course, we will quickly
Yeah,
respond.
but time. Yeah, you
yeah.
can respond. Yeah.
But first, I'll respond, and then my colleagues will talk. I think there's no specific order, but I'll start with question on showing, showing the results by frequently statistics. I would say our team would not do that. The reason I'll tell you, data analytics has three major predictions. One is frequency statistics, which Fisher upheld. We predict upfront. Another is Bayesian. Third is machine learning. Now, the random forest we used is ensemble of classification trees. The crucial, and that too random partition. The crucial difference between regression, for example, which is a linear model, y is function of x1, x2, x3. Whereas the same thing you specify in a classification tree, you don't need to assume independence of factors, x1 and x4, which is ludicrous and outdated. I would say medievalish. We question it. So we won't exhibit it by following conventional regression method because it's our ideology. I mean, ideology means our epistemological conviction, number one. Number two, now tier 1, tier 2 city. There's an interesting explanation emerging. Of course, we need to engage with it a little more animated manner. In fact, explanation comes from sociology, mathematical sociology and sociology. In fact, when it comes to the the physics of markets in small cities, the crucial role is played by embedded. Granovetter, I think he summarized his results published in Journal of Economic Perspective. That's also macro sociological theory. So embedding, say for example, I know you, you know me, the relation persists through trust mechanism. And defection is expensive. I think that's well captured, the problem of defection. Social contract is well captured in Kannada movie, Kantara, which is really brilliant. It's difficult to, defection means any defection of social contract is very expensive. That's impacting the network topology of small towns. Classic case is, I think in and around Puri temple or Udupi temple. I studied Udupi temple business systems. This is what I found. Embedding is very strong. On the other hand, come to Mumbai, it's more arm's length driven. It's a mix, arm's length and embedding. With Chembur, there is a panwala who used to be frequented by Raj Kapoor. But earlier, now that has been changed. That has transformed to predominance of arm's length. That means a huge chunk of business comes from random or even strangers who come to your shop. So proportionately, in city like Mumbai, not Raj Kapoors, but strangers constitute more. Whereas in Udupi, embedding matters. That's impacting the network topology. Of course, we'll bring those explanations, yeah, concerning
Also measures.
measures. So I think that's one of the reasons in the paper we have given, we used grounded theory approach to organize narratives from the field.
I only heard of
So it's a mixed design actually. So why we upfront rejected frequencies approach was it's incapable of understanding mixed system.
Yeah, please.
So machine learning.
So basically, I think we also have a lot of questions actually once we come out with the research, and there are many questions that need to be answered. This is the part of this research actually. What Professor Pandit has said, there are those questions need to be explored. What you actually said, those questions need to be explored. And also your point about why we consider platform, why not internet users, I think we can actually define this in a particular way. But I think when you said about artifacts in this, we are quite confident, at least when you run a regression model, there is a more probability of having artifact rather than in random forest actually. Because the sort of decision tree, and you randomize this number of trials and make this is the part, because it's a decision and one tree and you club those three and make a forest. So that's a simple term explanation about it. And we normally, when we do machine learning, actually, we divide the data into training and test set. Test set is completely independent. We test when we say 78% performance, we have done this performance on the test set, not training set. Actually. So we're quite sure there is no artifact into it. Had it been an artifact, we probably have 99% accuracy. So 78% accuracy. Still, there are many unanswered questions which is there. You can see bubbles are matching. So there are many multiple dimensions which we couldn't understand. Probably more detailed study is needed. But I'm quite sure that at least at this level, artifacts, the question of artifacts is ruled out actually. That is what, it may be more on the frequency circuit, what Professor Bino has said. Actually. So I well taken Professor Krishna's comment actually. We need to explain in our language actually. This is what our task is. This when we define the paper, we try to do that actually.
I think, thank you very much for your responses. I must again compliment you and congratulate you for this solid exercise. And I'm sure you will revise it and make it more easily accessible to the general line of economists here. Now I think we will go to the second paper by Ruchi Sharma and her student Aparna Sharma. I probably Professor Ruchi Sharma is presenting the paper.
Yes.
Yeah. And innovation strategies of the foreign firms in Indian manufacturing industry. It's a very, I think, important area, and I'm glad you have attempted it very seriously.
Very good afternoon to everybody. I'm very grateful to the Knowledge Forum to give me this opportunity to present this work. So I have co-authored this work with Aparna Sharma, and this is a part of a major project which has been undertaken under DST. So we are thankful for the financial funding. So the broader context of this work. So the broader context of this work is essentially the multinational enterprises. And in the recent past, we've seen that, at least in the last 3 decades, we've seen that there has been an increase in the R&D activities of the multinational company within the emerging economies as well, namely Brazil, China, and India. And if we look at the current literature, particularly in the Indian context, they study the R&D and patenting activities of multinational corporations along with the domestic industry firms. So we want to segregate from there, and we want to focus on the foreign firms for a very simple reason that they have an access to their global knowledge or global R&D which is being taken in the other countries and other subsidiaries as well. So when we talk about the R&D internationalization and the associated literature, there's a very interesting paper in 2020. It has done this kind of a periodization of the research, and they focused on how in the initial 80s and 90s, most of the work was essentially looking for the reasons for the R&D internationalization. And they have come up with the ideas of home-based augmenting or a home-based exploiting or an asset exploiting and asset seeking kind of an explanation for why multinational corporations will go and will do R&D in other countries. Apart from that, there's some works which were related to multinational organization restructuring as well. And some studies are also focusing on where and how the cross-border R&D was occurring. In the last 2 decades, what happened with the access to a broader data sets and of course the techniques which are available now. There is again a focus on asset seeking and asset augmenting approaches, and it is in that context, taking inspiration from the work of data from the work of Basim Serra, we have taken our work forward. So in the Indian context, when we talk about it, there has been literature in early works by Reddy has also pointed out that India is not only the R&D destination for adaptation and product development for the local market, but also for the R&D activities related to new products and processes. In 2010, there's another work by Vasant and Mani who have looked at the R&D centers work. Minali and her co-authors' work is also very well quoted and known for their FDI for R&D activities in India. And they have studied 706 firms. And what they found was that only 117 firms have formal linkages to the Indian institutions. Later, the work by Ilaswaran, he has also looked at the linkages between R&D center and foreign firms in ICT sector in India. Now, 2 major results come out of this literature when we look at the Indian context. One is that there is a concentration in the geography, that most of these R&D centers are concentrated in Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai. And also the concentration is industry-wide, whether it is IT, R&D, software, engineering design, etc. So this is the work from Sandhya's and their TIFAC report. Now, what motivates us to look at is essentially from the host country perspective is what is this nature of the R&D activities of the multinational in the developing countries. We also separate from the earlier literature in a very major sense that earlier literature has looked at the R&D center. So they have first gone ahead and found out the list of the R&D centers which are working in India and accordingly looked at their activities. Whereas we have looked at the foreign firms and their wholly owned subsidiaries. Essentially, the focus is once again on the manufacturing sector. So I'll come to that as well. So now this is where I think the major role has been played by the Knowledge Forum as well, because the idea for this classification came from Philip Worth, which he presented in 2017. And when he talked about technology exploiting, creating and seeking work. So his work and his article in the same book has been very helpful for me in deciding that. But that work is based in Belgium and they have an access to the innovation surveys, the community innovation survey. So they have used the responses to that community innovation survey and find out whether this technology is exploiting, creating and seeking. So we learn from that. And then we move forward in terms of using the patent data and document and try to, again classify the technology. So I come back to this slide one more time. Here, the idea is that when we're talking about technology exploiting, the broad idea is that the technology has been, an outcome of the R&D activity which has been done globally by the firm, and they are treating Indian market as somewhere where they just want to sell the technology. So the Indian market is important in that context. The other spectrum of the thing is technology creating. So, so here the idea is that the product itself has been conceptualized, innovated and designed, and also to an extent maybe protected in the Indian context. There's a possibility that it will be mass produced here as well, and then maybe it will go back to the other global sectors or maybe the other countries in which that particular multinational enterprises have been created. Now, between these two spectrum, there is another one, which is technology seeking. Here, the basic idea is that we visualize this R&D internationalization as a kind of a value chain, which companies are, using. They are developing maybe the ideation or the basic concept of the product comes in particular center, and it develops and its parts in its particular, maybe aspect develop in the different R&D sectors or maybe in the different, you can say the places where the company has been doing work. So if there is a value chain, which is as the production value chain, this R&D value chain is also spread across. Now, in that case, what will happen? The companies will be using the resource which is cheaply available in that particular country. Going with the, the earlier traditional hypothesis. Here, again, the companies will be looking for maybe the skilled labor, particularly in ICT sector, which may be available in the Indian context, and will be using that labor and again asking them to contribute to its final product development. So this is the broad spectrum of the things which we have conceptualized. Technology exploiting and creating on the two sides and seeking in between. And then we try to use the data from patent document itself and find out, can we classify that each of those patent into technology creating, exploiting, and as well as the seeking one. So here what we do, we use the information related to the priority country, assignee, and inventor. This information is available within the patent document, and we try and use that information and see that can be classified. So if we look at the literature, there's a very influential work by Gayton in 2013 in Research Policy, whereby he talked about that the priority country, that means the country where the patent is filed first, is of a great significance, and it can really help in locating the innovation in a particular country, most importantly from the developing countries perspective. So the priority country gains more important significance here. The next is the assignee. Now, assignee is usually the applicant in the Indian context, and assignee is more of a American context here. The company which will be filing the patent. Patents are filed by the inventors, they belong to inventor, but they assign their rights to the companies. So then, assignee would be the company which would be relevant here. And why it is relevant for us is because we are dealing with the foreign firms. And then there are inventors. So existing literature, what it does, it has used either one of these to find out and locate the invention or innovation in a particular place. What we do, we bring them together and try to see that if the innovation is located in India or not. If yes, then we treat it as a creating one, and or either as a seeking one or as an exploiting one. So this is the basic definition, which I think I've already explained. So here what happens is that if we are talking about a technology exploiting one, since it's easy to understand, let's first cover that. So R&D activity is not likely to be located in the country. The patent which is being filed by the Indian subsidiary, that will also be no. So Indian subsidiary will not be filing the patent. Patent which will be filed by the parent firm at the Indian Patent Office. Patent will be filed by the other patents of possibility. And then the priority will not be India in that particular case. And there can be a family patent of that particular patent in India. So if we find these particular attributes in a patent, we will try and classify that as an exploiting one. Then creating one, here the R&D activity is located in India. We will also find most of the inventors belong to India. Priority will also be in Indian context. And also the parents will be not filing, but the Indian subsidiary of the company will be filing. And the key distinction will be that if the patent is being filed by the Indian subsidiary, its family patent may be filed in the other jurisdictions. Now the most confusing and the difficult one in that case becomes the seeking one and how to locate that. So if we there we looked at most of the time the inventor-based definition. Now, if with respect to again R&D activities, partially R&D activity will be located in the Indian context. And the patent will be filed by the parent, once again by the parent. Why? Because it's a part of their international global value. So as a result, the parent will be filing the particular patent, can be at IP or at a USPTO. And also, or it could be subsidiary also which can be filing. Priority, when we initially started with the idea, we said that the priority will not be in India in this particular case, it will be another case. However, we faced certain challenges when we started looking at data. So what we have done after doing this kind of a classification, we also went to experts. It's not moving.
Yeah, we know. It moved just now.
So we went to experts, and these experts actually belong to the industry. Some of them were the R&D managers of the corporations. Some of them were the legal expert. 50% were the legal expert, and 50% were from industry. And we showed them our classification, and then they gave us certain ideas about what makes a company decide about the priority of the particular country. They also highlighted that apart from where the location of the particular invention is, the priority is also based on whether there is a market for that particular product or not, whether it is easy to prosecute that particular patent in that country or not. For example, ICT patents, it's much more easy to prosecute in an American patent office. So you will find that many of the Indian patent companies, Indian companies which want to file in that particular technology area would first file at USPTO, and will have the priority there instead of having it in India. Then they also highlighted very important aspect that in the Indian context, we have the foreign filing license. So any Indian inventor, when they file a foreign patent, they have to take permission from the Indian Patent Office. And as a result, many times what happened, that the companies may give priority in India, first file in India and then file in other countries. So that is where this priority one, which I earlier highlighted, that we then became a bit more relaxed on it, that priority can also be in India in that particular case. And also, when they also highlighted that there is no legal significance of the assigning order and the inventor order. Each one of them have legally equal rights as such. And most importantly, they also give more preference to the use of inventor level information in order to locate the particular invention. So when we started looking at how do we come up with the foreign firms, I think all of us know the frustration of dealing with CMI databases. So, but we have to live with it. So major challenges comes in terms of the foreign firm definition. If you use their definition, it is very confusing. If you go by 10% equity based definition, you file companies like Cipla, which are also foreign, and so that becomes very challenging. So what we did, we went to MCA database, and there we looked at, can we use the CIN classification and find a list of the companies which are foreign firms in that particular context. So after going through it, we find that there is one classification of FTC firms, which are the wholly owned subsidiaries firms registered in India, and then we can use that. So we looked at that and we found around 12,000, more than 12,000 companies in that. Once again, we wanted to focus on the manufacturing sector because our focus was patenting as a measure of invention. And in case of the service sector, patenting has a limited role to play in terms of appropriation of technology through through the mechanism, that particular mechanism. So then we used the NIC code and then focused on the manufacturing sector related firms only. We came very drastically down to 1,600 odd firms in that particular case. Then we tried to look out whether the company is doing R&D in that case in India or not. First, we went to CMI. We were able to access only 191 companies in that case. But what we did, we also did a very broad search to see if there is any kind of an R&D activity of that company. Please remember that we are not focusing on R&D center. So we are looking at whether the company has any R&D activity in India. So we looked at the LinkedIn profile, if there is an R&D manager of that particular company associated, if at any newspaper item there has been mention of the R&D divisions, etc. And then we gave a binary of 0 and 1 and identified that. The patent data we collected from Paxia, which is a secondary source. They collect information from Indian Patent Office, and then they also do some of work on it in terms of some other characteristics. So when we looked at that, what we find is that the number of the companies which are doing R&D in this is rather limited, and though very interestingly, what we find is that the total number of firms we had 1,674, and out of which 778 are filing patents. Whereas if I go back here, what we find is that this 1130 does not have any R&D in India. So once again, if you link and you want to find a very straightforward in the regression analysis, the relationship between R&D and patenting, you may not find a very straightforward result, particularly because of the presence of the foreign firms. So then what we did, we looked at the data of the patents which is being filed by these companies. Now here also was another challenge. Now, if we look and search just the name of that particular company, whether at IPO or whether at a USPTO, and if we use the exact name in the Indian context, we will be extremely limited because our experts has already highlighted that the inventors should be used to locate. Now, those inventors can be part of the patent which has been filed by the parent firm or any other subsidiary of that firm. So while doing the search at the patent office as well as the USPTO, we did our search very broadly. So it's, we did not limit it to an exact name of the company as it has been given in the MCA. But so there was a Samsung India, Samsung International, Samsung maybe South Korea. So again, we had a very broad search of that. So I'm sorry about a very small font here, but I just, the numbers are given in the other slide also. I just wanted to highlight the methodology. It is much more, a bit more exploratory in the nature, but because we are trying to classify the technologies here. So we started with what is the total number of patents which have been filed at IPO, which is here. And then we classify them whether they have a priority in India or not. If they have priority in India, to whom they are assigned, whether they are assigned to the Indian subsidiary or whether they are assigned to the parent firm or the foreign or any other subsidiary there. After looking at the assignee, we looked at whether the inventors, whether the majority of those inventors are Indian or not, and then whether the first inventor is Indian or not. So similarly, we did it for the USPTO also, and priority in India or not, or priority outside. Most of the patents have priority outside India only. They did not have priority in India as expected. So what are our key findings? We find that from the IPO data, we find that the most of the patents, they have priority outside India. In case priority is India, assignee are also Indian. And in such cases, involvement of Indian inventor is high, either as a majority inventor or the first inventor. So in that case, the definition which we again use, there is an alignment to that. That means you can locate that particular invention in the Indian context. Even when the priority is not in India, applications have a family patent in India. Once again, highlighting the role of the market in the Indian context. And there are certain cases with Indian assignee and inventor, when priority country is not India once again, which is again a conclusive result. Here, once again, what our experts said came in handy to interpret that the Indian market, the other markets are maybe easy for them for either to prosecute the patent, like, or it could be from the market perspective or the production related aspect that might have given the motivation to companies to go for the priority in other countries. At USPT also, most patents with priority outside India are without Indian assignees also. For cases with priority in India, assignee is not India and inventors are based in India. This again, I would like to highlight, if we would not have, broaden our category, broaden our name search at the patent data, we would have missed out on the contribution of the Indian inventors into the global R&D activities of those companies. So because if you see here, so there are patents which are not assigned to India and they do not have a priority in India, but the inventors are doing it, right? So this is in line with the comment again of the first, the other one. And in case if Indian inventors are not involved and priority is India, an expert has noted that only for the market reason that might be that they are here. So, so if you look at it, we do find that when we want to now categorize those patents in technology, exploiting, seeking, creating, etc., very limited one of them are in the creating category. Some of them are in the seeking one, which is once again highlighting the role of the Indian inventor. So this is the sum of that the chart which I showed earlier. And this is the broad origin of those firms which we have seen. UK scene is very highlighted here. So most of the technology creating activities we find that are coming from UK based companies also. So this is how it has evolved temporarily over a period of a time. So if I look at it, there is an involvement. So one thing is that there is an involvement of Indian subsidiaries in the innovation activity of the multinational at the global level, but limited. So this is a very stark result here that among the entire data set, we find that only 42 out of that 1674, 42 Indian subsidiaries have the first or the second assignee of the patent. And these subsidiaries have only 13 patent at USPTO and 720 at IPO. So that becomes a bit of a concern, I would say. And this is also in line with the comment which has been made by an expert. So far as the choice of patent filing is concerned. So one thing here is that which is also being questioned in the literature, we can use as a patent as a measure of innovation. But when we look at patent filing, whether we are looking at increase in the filing or increase in the innovation. So here they also highlighted that patent filing is concerned, most of the applicants, they deal with the foreign filing is decided by the main parent company. The major decision related to patenting is being done by the parent company itself rather than the subsidiary. And the subsidiary companies are not independent in choosing their patent filing. And here they also highlighted that many a times you will find that if an Indian firm, a legal firm, has been hired to file, they will get assistance from their foreign counterpart in terms of filing and other things. So in that sense, parent firms, they take most of the strategic decisions when it comes to the patenting matter. And Indian subsidiary as an assignee has limited presence, but Indian inventors are involved and in most of the patents.
So the chairman, please conclude.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
much. I think most of
I would like to compliment Professor Sharma for the good work in progress. I think much remains to be done.
Yes.
Probably you should look at an overall assessment in Deepak Nair, a book on Asian resurgence, diversity in development. That is, there is a chapter on these aspects in that book. In India in a comparative framework. I'm not suggesting that is the only reference you should consult, but there's so much done. But it is a very good work in progress. I would like to compliment you for that. Yeah. And now I think we will devote a few minutes for questions from the.
No, I just want to.
Yeah. Siddhartha, yeah.
No, it's not what you. Okay. I just want to compliment her for the very detailed and painstaking work she has done. There are several actors, scientists, patents, R&D laboratories and multinationals having different centers in different countries. It is mind-boggling actually. It's very difficult to solve any of these. So I tried to solve sometime for the Philips office in India, Bangalore. How do they patent? What do they, which research they do in Bangalore, which in Singapore, which in some other country, and then who decides all these things? So deciphering these things is a jigsaw puzzle, and that puzzle will take time to, and also deep understanding of what's happening to do that. And she has done that, and she's done beyond that. I think it is a very, very intellectual work which requires non-technologists to understand technology properly. That's more difficult actually. So this is just, I'm sure you are in touch with Philip. Well, both of you are thinking on the same lines. Philip is also, he could come here, but he is also a governing council member of our forum. So these two can intellectually share their knowledge and then produce some very solid contribution to this area. Thank you again.
President Goldberg.
Must congratulate her on this work. I think it's very good work. Because at one stage, I had a project in which we are looking at the patenting in the pharmaceutical area. And we are looking at the audience. There's so much work. See, if you do a case study, it is easy, relatively. If you have to say 10,000 patent applications, I mean, how do you assess it? It's all PDF files, you read this 10,000 applications. So I compliment her for developing the methodology, developing certain criteria, divided. I don't know, I think she was talking about filing or was she talking about awarding, but maybe she was application. She's talking only applications, not patent awarded. That's the relation, but it's not right. Now, I don't have any particular suggestion in this regard, but you can see the importance of this kind of work because till now, very often spillover study, one paper is coming right now. When we look at the spillover, we count in that industry forward linkage, backward linkage, how many firms are there. But what is the nature of that foreign firm? Is it technology seeking, technology creating, technology exploiting will impact what happens to the linked. So this aspect we have, unfortunately, she has been able to cover only a small number of, although 1600 is not a small. So if these data become available, people who do these spillover studies can greatly use them. Maybe she can herself do it. Why give it to others? That I think Stan has a great petition.
I have a question.
Yeah. Please be brief because we are behind schedule. Yeah.
So when we talk about patent, there are a lot of franchisee model and other thing actually, like the parent company is there, then franchisee is in India, or maybe cross-company collaboration or cross-institution collaborations. So how do we actually, in terms of understanding patenting, how do we take care of these collaborations? Because an actual fight is there in the collaborations. So who is getting patent? Who is not getting patent?
Those collaboration will be reflected in the assignees. And then we can pick up the first assignee and the second assignee and allocate.
I think we will take up the third paper. Yeah, you have. Yeah.
So, first of all, my congratulations for undertaking the painstaking study. So I have a clarification question. When you look at the firm-wise performance, if you look at their sector, because if we look at the R&D centers, most of them are in the ICT sector. So do we know that the Patent Act of India has some restrictions in terms of patenting, yeah, especially if the innovations are fully in software area. So in such cases, obviously, the firms will not have an option for getting patents here. So they may tend to apply in some other countries. So how will in this aspect also?
Yeah, please be brief in responding. Yeah.
That gets reflected in the priority. That was also highlighted by the experts. And so whether the country is priority or not. Another is if you're talking about a pure service sector, then we have looked at that NIC classification, we looked at only manufacturing sector. The IT will not be.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now we will take up the third paper, FDI cluster technology and export performance study, pharmaceutical firms in India by Shreya Anurakti and Professor Narayanan. Shreya probably will present now. Yeah.
Share.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank College Forum for giving me this opportunity to present my work in front of you all. The topic for my research work is FDI clusters, technology, and the export performance of pharmaceutical firms in India. The main objective of this research is to understand the relationship between the technology and the export performance of pharmaceutical firms in India. And here we are defining technology in terms of technological efforts and technological outcomes. The other
Santosh, why is this coming in between?
that's very important. The objective of this research is to measure the impact of FDI spillovers on the export performance of the firm, which is measured as decision to export and export intensity of the pharmaceutical firms located in different regional clusters. So based on the econometric exercise, we have identified the following factors which can explain and which help us in explaining the export performance of the firms in India. So the first factor is FDI clusters, which is measured as the foreign R&D spillover, which are calculated at the different regional levels. So we identify different regions and then we calculated the foreign R&D spillover. The second factor is technological efforts. Here the technological efforts is measured through three channels. The first one is in-house R&D efforts. The second channel is import of capital goods. The third channel is import of raw materials. And now coming to the technological outcomes, we identify two factors. The first one is the US FDA approved drug files received by the pharmaceutical firms, which is a pharmaceutical sector specific variable. And the second one is patents granted to the pharmaceutical firms in India. And the other control variables such as firm size and age of the firm. So briefly, the presentation contains following. We will have a brief overview of the pharmaceutical industry in India, followed by literature review, then followed by the data and description of variables, methodology, trends and exports, patents and FDI clusters, then coming to the key findings, and finally the summary and conclusion. The enactment of Patent Amendment Act in 2005 led to the internal investment became more significant among the firms, with majority of the firms in India are investing more in the development of generic drugs. All these factors led India to rise to the top of the generic drugs market globally and earning it the moniker of pharmacy of the world. So India has become the largest pharmaceutical industry in the world in terms of generic drugs over the years. And now it accounts for around 20% of the global exports in generic drugs. Now coming to the annual report of Pharmaceutical Export Promotion Council of India report 2020, we see that if we look at the export basket, we see that the drug formulations and biologicals contribute around 72.7% of the total pharma exports, followed by bulk drugs and drug intermediates, which contributes around 20.5% of the total exports. So we have also looked at what are the major export destinations for India, and we identified that USA, UK, South Africa, and Russia are the top export destination for pharmaceutical goods. Now there is also a US Food and Drug Administration or US FDA compliant pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities that are present in India. And according to the annual report of FDI inflows in India, 2019 report, we see that between 2000 to 2018, states like Gujarat, Delhi, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Telangana received around 48% of the total FDI inflows in the pharmaceuticals industry. Based on this background, we have identified the factors. So this slide gives us the trend in the overview. So here you can look at the graph which shows the share of total pharmaceutical export to the global pharmaceutical export between the time period 2005 to 2020. So if we see post 2005, pharmaceutical exports saw an increasing trend in terms of export growth, and it's reached its pinnacle in 2014. After that, there is a slowdown, and the slowdown can be attributed to the two factors. The first one was the period of global recession and reduction in overall international trade. Then there was also a problem of increased competition from other Asian nations. And post 2019, there is a steady increase, which was largely driven by the increased shipment of generic medication to more than 200 nations, which includes both developed and developing nations. So we have included a summary of selected literature on the determinants of export performance, and we see that most of the studies have identified firm size, in-house R&D, effectiveness, technology, and skill intensity, capital intensity, etc. So in our work, we have also tried to look at the technological outcomes, not just the technological efforts, but we have also tried to look at how technological outputs can have an impact on the export performance. So for the purpose of the study, we have used 3 data sources: CMI, Progress IQ, to extract data on the firm level variables such as net sales, profit before tax, R&D expenditure, export earnings, etc. And we have used in-pass database of the Indian Patent Office to identify the firms which have been granted patents between 2005 to 2020. So we have looked at the fields of innovations, which includes pharmaceuticals, chemicals, biotechnology, microbiology, biochemistry, polymer technology, and general engineering. Now for the drug files, we have looked at the Orange Book and the US FDA website, which contains drug files of approved drug products with theoretical equivalence evaluations granted to pharmaceutical firms between 2005 to 2020. So in the sample, we have included only those pharmaceutical firms that have at least exported once between 2005 to 2020. And the period of the study is 2005 to 2020 because the Patent Amendment Act was passed in 2005. So after the passing of Patent Amendment Act in 2005, there has been a considerable increase in the R&D investment as well as in the patenting act. So in the final data cleaning process, we have excluded all those firms which have reported zero or negative net sales. So which left us with 318 pharmaceutical firms in our sample. Also, there is a problem of unavailability of data on various firms for some years, so it's an unbalanced fact. So based on the sample, we try to identify those states in which have the highest concentration of both domestic as well as foreign firms. So in the north region comprises of 2 states, Punjab and Delhi. The south region comprises of 3 states, Karnataka, Kerala, Telangana, and the west region comprises of Gujarat and Maharashtra. So out of the 3 regions, you can see that the maximum number of domestic firms as well as foreign firms are located in the west region. So this table gives some brief introduction about the variables which have been introduced in this study. So the dependent variable is decision to export, which is a dichotomous variable. So it takes the value 0 if a firm does not decide to export, and if a firm decides to export, then it takes the value 1. The other independent variable is export intensity, which is the share of total export and export expenditures to the net sales. And all the variables are in the percentage. So only one variable I want to talk about is the last variable, which talks about the export decision. It's a very crucial variable because in the Hickman model, we have to find at least one instrument variable which only affects the selection equation. It should not affect the outcome. So the export decision, it gives us the consistency of a firm over the years if it has been deciding to export. Let's say we have a time period of 2016. From 2000 to 2020. So for 16 years, if a firm has been consistently deciding to export, then there is a very high probability that it will export in the current year. Now we have used Hickman two-stage model to account for probable sample selection bias. So the first stage is a selection equation which analyzes the decision to export. So if a firm decides to export, it has been given a value 1, and if it doesn't decide to export, then it's a given value 0. So once a firm has decided to export, then we have tried to analyze how much they are exporting. So the second stage or the outcome stage talks about the export intensity. So the first equation we have tried to use consists of following independent variables, and we used maximum likelihood estimation method to. Now coming to the trends and exports and patents and FDI cluster. So here we have tried to categorize the firms as into 2 subsamples. So the first sample consists of all firms, the second sample consists of only domestic firms, and we have also tried to look at the export intensity of only multinational firms. So if we look at the graph, we will see that the domestic firms have the highest export intensity. But after reaching 2016, most of the firms' export intensity is declining. That means that they are looking more towards to serve the consumer from domestic. Now coming to the region-wise comparison of R&D intensity, export intensity, and patenting activities in the spurt, which is based on the 3 reasons as we discussed. So if we look at the R&D intensity, we'll see that the best region has the highest number of R&D intensity, average R&D intensity, followed by South region. And similarly, if we look at the export intensity and the patent count, average patent count, we'll see that the west region has the highest number in all those parameters. Now we have also tried to look at the average export intensity in terms of 3 reasons, and we can see an interesting result that although the average export intensity of west region is higher, over the years the export intensity of north region is increasing. It has increased in 2017 more than the west. We have also tried to plot the graph of average patent counts granted to the firms belonging to pharmaceutical hubs between 2005 to 2020. And we can see that West has the highest number of pharmaceutical patenting activity. So what does the econometric analysis gives us? So these are the key findings. So we have included all firm samples, and the second is for only domestic firm samples. So for the stage 1, we found that the FDI not cluster spillover variable is coming out to be significant. So that it means that the firms which are located in the north region are deciding to export more, and they are over the years they have more and more firms are deciding to take part in the exports. And also we are seeing that the persistence of firms deciding to export has a positive impact on my present decision. Now coming to the export intensity, we'll see that the FDI cluster effect has a positive and significant impact, and which can be seen through the variable FDI R&D West cluster fill, which shows that the firms located in the West, due to the invitation effect of the foreign R&D spillovers, have a higher export intensity, and the raw import drug files firm size also have a positive impact. Now coming to the domestic firms, we see that the similar results can be seen for the domestic firms also, and that can be attributed to the fact that the all firm sample, the domestic firms are higher as compared to the small. So we are not getting any significantly different results. Only R&D intensity for the domestic firms, which is lagged with 1 year, is coming out to be significant for both decision to export as well as for the export intensity. So if a firm which has R&D intensive in the last year has a higher chances to export. So these are the results which have been identified. So if we look at the LR test, we see that it is significant, which shows that there exists a sample selection bias problem in our analysis. So using a Hickman method is the correct method to correct for the sample selection bias. Now coming to the summary and the conclusion, this paper examined how technologically and FDI clusters affect the export performance of pharmaceutical firms in India using the Hickman stage. And we also looked at all firm sample as well as for domestic firm sample. So the results clearly indicate that there is a positive impact of FDI clusters on the export performance. So West regions are able to reap benefits of foreign R&D spillover, resulting in higher export intensity compared to firms located in other regions. Then there is firms, so we can say that the firms located in the West region are appear to feeling the pressure of competition due to the presence of multinational firms in the same cluster. The North region, over the years, the R&D spillover from the foreign firms has a positive impact on the firm's decision to export compared to the firms located in the other region. Now, if we look at the technological effort side, we see that the import of raw material has a positive impact, which shows that firms that import more raw materials have a higher export intensity. Similarly, for in-house R&D efforts, domestic firms' previous years in-house R&D activities have a positive influence on both decision to export as well as export intensity. And that can also be understood that in the pharmaceutical sector, R&D intensity plays a very important role because producing a drug requires certain amount of R&D from the firm side. Also, the import of capital goods is turning out to be negative and significant, which shows that the firms that import higher amount of capital goods tend to produce more pharma products for the domestic consumer. The technological outcomes shows that drug files, which is measured through the US FDA approved drug files or license, tend to have a higher export intensity vis-a-vis other firms, as they find it easier to export in highly regulated developed countries like US, Europe, and etc. Other firm variables characters such as age, size of the firm, age of the firm, and the persistent export decisions by the firms over the year also influence the export via the pharmaceutical firms.
Thank you. Because we are running behind schedule, I will be brief in my comments. I must compliment Chaya and Narayanan for a good work on a different and an important topic. But I think I have a few queries and suggestions for you. One is your table 1 summarizing the literature is very good, very comprehensive. I think it covers the pharmaceutical industry firms as well as other industry firms. Very good. Then your discussion of results also is very good, but I would like to say because you are using panel data, I think you should refer to Pesaran's book on panel data models, and where your own work will fit into that framework. It will be useful. Pesaran, it came about 4 or 5 years ago. Pesaran is a very well-known panel data econometrician. Yeah, I think you should refer to that book because it is going to be a PhD thesis. I think examiners will appreciate if you indicate such references. And you are using regional dummies or regional aspects also, but therefore you should also use in your table 5 regression, which is based on panel data. Regional dummies also you should use. You can't use so many firm dummies, but regional dummies is something which you should try. And you have the time year dummies. I think you have data for 16 years, 15 or 16 years. You have got probably 15 or 14 year dummies. You should also comment on the differences in the coefficients of the year dummies. Whether they are overall, whether they are significant or not, is one aspect. And year to year differences also is something to be looked into. I think you are using the word unbiased and biased probably inappropriately because that term is appropriate for finite samples. you are, I think, probably focusing on infinite samples. Infinite sample theory, I would say. Therefore, there the appropriate terms will be consistent and asymptotically efficient. And Max-Planck group method is consistent and asymptotically efficient. I think that is, you should mention, although your sample may not be large enough to claim that property, but that is a basic theoretical argument. I think this, in terms of econometric methodology, some of these points you should note because it is a PhD thesis, very important for you. Anyhow, I will be in touch with you and I will give you more suggestions. But now I will throw it open to the floor for further discussion. Yeah, Aradhana, yeah.
Well, actually, I have a common observation from 3 papers. And this actually I am saying because I am also a senior editor of an AJG listed journal. And we actually reject 80% of articles, which are test rejected. So on that basis, so please don't mind. My common observation is that there is a lack of theory in all 3 papers. I didn't see any theory to begin with. It was all about this is what we are doing, this is the data, this is the methodology, and these are the results. But the most important part of, because this is economics papers, we have to have some theoretical background. So some sort of theoretical framework is to be there. Otherwise, it is very difficult to get the papers accepted or noticed. Her question on 2nd tier, 3rd tier, I think this question also came out of that feeling because, maybe you say that it is inductive approach. We did not know anything to begin with, and we want to really come up with some conclusion. Then it is okay. Then one can understand that you are doing this, and then you want to really see why 2nd tier cities are doing better. So this is, this justifies the entire thing. So similarly for us, so it is very important to first, frame it in your mind whether you are doing deductive research or adopting deductive research, you are adopting inductive research, or it is abductive research. And then because then it becomes easier for the reader to understand how you will proceed with your research. Okay, so if you are, for instance, I don't know whether what you are doing, which approach you are adopting, whether you are really wanting to see or you have some hypothesis in mind. But I think it is, if it is, deductive, then you have to have some theory to begin with. And similar thing goes with you, why you are doing that, why foreign firms. So, these are several questions that come.
Thank you. Yeah. Another questions, Dr. Gordon.
Just very briefly, one point I want to make is that whether patenting of a by pharma company will lead to export or not depends on the type of patenting. Because again, the study I was mentioning, each patent we try to link which disease it is targeting. Suppose it is targeting a lifestyle disease, it's likely to be exported. It is targeting not a lifestyle disease, it's a communicable disease. That will be more for selling in India. So this involves a lot of work because we have to have medical people to help us out in deciding each patent, what is the disease to which it is targeted. But if you can do that, then it will show that exporting can have different impact depending on which patent you have. The second point I want to make is you need to make a distinction between the formulators and the bulk drug producers come formulators because formulator is what is the role of R&D there? It is simply getting Chinese raw material and making something and selling it to US. So it is important that within the sample, I think these 2 broad groups should be separated or some game should.
Any other comments? Yeah.
This is regarding
Mr. Jain, yeah.
I think it's good paper, just a few comments on your technological effort. The import of certain constituents, there's some formulations which are critically dependent. But the question is, how much money companies spending on raw materials? What is the percentage of the import? Now, export relationship comes the nature of the product. So you just can't correlate the import of raw material to exports. So I think the technological effort needs to be then. Generally, I find that we tend to refer to R&D, invention, innovation as one category, which they are not. So by writing papers, especially coming from a technology background, I find that this distinction is often not made. So you talk about R&Ds and suddenly say this is an indication of innovation then. It is not necessarily. So I think that's a general comment talking about it. But I think if you can somehow try to find out the nature of formulations, which market, where, then it would be easy to sort of disaggregate the technology gap. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
So I thank you very much for the paper. So if we take the Indian pharmaceutical industry and divide into three parts, so it's the generic drugs, vaccine, and medical device industry. We have leadership in two, generic and vaccine. Actually, this is regarding your patenting behavior. And if you see the patenting behavior in these three specific industries, it is a little bit different. Because mainly this medical device industry is for this generic and vaccines. We have leadership, but in the medical device industry mostly import oriented. Right. To see if you look at the patenting behavior in each industry specifically, so maybe it would be more interesting.
Any small query?
This is regarding. So regarding the data, that you said there may be sample selection data, exporting or not, whether who is exporting. So you have two equations, selection equation and this outcome. So the lambda is significant. There we can both the things are we need to restrict this outcome equation.
So if there is a sample selection that is the same exist, so that means applying the ordinary OLS will not give us the proper result. So that's why we have to first see whether the lambda is coming out to be significant or not. And once it comes out significant, that shows that there is a sample selection bias. So we have to use our Heckman's method, and Heckman method gives us probably this.
Observation. So we need to restrict to the outcome model or both.
That can continue over lunch.
So you would like to add something as another?
Sure.
Outcome you have to restrict.
So you want to respond or you want me to respond? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Professor Jain. I'll start with you. The debate between us on what is R&D, whether it's patent or not, continues. It's been going on for, I think the debate will continue. We are trying to understand more by deconstructing it, by looking at what exactly the kind of drug formula approval they're getting, so that we are able to produce it and send it to the same country, US drug. That's exactly what we do. So that much we are able to trace that once we get that certification, we produce it here and send it. So that much we know it's related to that, etc. But of course, again, linking import to export, specifically we are looking at what exactly are used as in production function, what is coming in, input used for producing that particular those drugs, and those drugs which are what is sold in India, what is exported. That's all we are able to see. Of course, other comments and suggestions are welcome. I mean, I think Aradhana's comment is generally applicable to all the paper writers. Most people sitting in the West think that we don't have theory, but we still publish in top class journals. So, the discussion and debate continues. Okay. And yeah. Professor Goldar, yes, of course, it's important to distinguish the drugs, whether they are addressing lifestyle or what kind of disease, communicable diseases, including vaccines, etc. I think that we have not done. We will still try to do that. That's a very, very useful suggestion of whether type of patenting and also the type of drug that's manufactured. What is the purpose for this drug is used or consumed? I think we'll definitely look at that. We will also try to make a distinction between. We have actually made a distinction between bulk drug manufacturer and others, especially which are sent to export, etc. I think Shah didn't get time to highlight it, but we'll work on it and maybe continue the discussion.
Thank you, Professor Krishna, for your suggestion on econometrics. We are still learning.
Shreya, please note all the points, and then I will have more comments to send the email to you. I will do that in.
Thank you.
I would like to congratulate you for doing a very good job so far, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Krishna, for chairing it. Thank you all the presenters. We are 20 minutes behind schedule, but we'll use 40 minutes to have lunch and come back. Rajesh wants to. Lunch is third floor. Third floor.
Come back at 2 o'clock.
Let's try. Please come back at 2 o'clock so that.
There's no cascade in it. Otherwise it's cascade.